Good evening and thank you for joining us for KREM News at 6 tonight. I'm Mark Hanrahan. Whitney is off. The state of Washington taking a big step today to combat the Delta variant of the coronavirus. State employees and healthcare workers will all be required to get vaccinated or they'll be fired. KREM 2 political reporter Casey Decker joining us live in the newsroom tonight with the latest on this announcement. And Casey, why is the governor taking this step right now?
Case numbers are skyrocketing statewide, and more importantly, hospitals are starting to get crowded again. So in an effort to stop the spread and increase vaccinations, Governor Inslee issued a new order today. First off, all public employees for state cabinet agencies must be vaccinated. This also applies to state contractors. Secondly, all public or private healthcare workers in Washington and all workers in long-term care facilities will need to get the shot. It doesn't apply to separately elected state leaders or their employees, so the Attorney General's office, for example, but those offices largely are requiring vaccines on their own. It also does not currently apply to K-12 schools or higher ed. Workers will need to be fully vaccinated by October 18th. Employers are responsible for making sure their workers prove their status. If employees refuse, they'll be considered to no longer be meeting the basic qualifications for their job, and they'll be fired. Today, the governor essentially said with Delta threatening the state's recovery, the time for wavering on the vaccine is over.
It's understandable, I think, that some have been hesitant up till now. It's understandable they would ask questions about this vaccine. It's a new vaccine, by the way. But now we have had over 300 million people take this vaccine safely. Over 165 million Americans are already successfully vaccinated. This vaccine has now been armed for over a year, safely and effectively.
The governor said that this is all under his emergency pandemic authority. At the moment, he is not issuing any new mask mandates, but today his office said that may be an option in the future if cases keep skyrocketing. Now, having this requirement for long-term care employees is especially important because, as we've seen across the state and the country, that is where the worst and the deadliest outbreaks take place. That's true in Spokane County as well. According to state data, since the start of the pandemic, 699 people have died from COVID here. Of those, 364 were in long-term care facilities. That's more than half. Now, King County and the city of Seattle also announced similar orders for their government workers. However, I reached out to spokespeople for Spokane County and the city of Spokane, and both said that vaccine mandates for local government employees are not being considered here right now. Mark?
Casey, thank you very much. The Spokane Regional Health District released new numbers today. They report 98 new cases today, and they say there are 111 COVID patients hospitalized right now. These numbers we haven't seen in quite some time. They say 50.5% of Spokane County residents ages 12 years and older are now fully vaccinated. The Panhandle Health District released a statement with an update on their COVID numbers as well. The release states they were averaging 16 cases per day in early July. Now in the second week of August, they are averaging 113 cases per day. PhD says percent positivity has been increasing and ranges from 5.26 to 23.44%. The release states, quote, levels above 5% typically indicate that not enough testing is happening in a community and there is more virus circulating than is known, unquote. Members of the U.S. military would be required to have the COVID-19 vaccine starting September 15th under a plan announced by the Pentagon today. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's plan provides time for the FDA to give final approval to the Pfizer vaccine, which is expected early next month. Without that formal approval, Austin would need a waiver from President Biden to make the shots mandatory. President Biden has made it clear that he does support that. Austin said in his memo that the military services will have the next few weeks to prepare, determine how many vaccines they need, and how this mandate will be implemented. Let's talk weather, shall we? After a cool and rainy weekend here in the inland Northwest, we're expecting things to heat up yet again. Let's get to meteorologist Michelle Boss in the Outdoor Weather Center tonight. She's in for Tom tonight. Michelle, when does the heat arrive once more?
We're going to start seeing that excessive heat as early as midweek, so hopefully you get a chance to get outside and enjoy those cooler temperatures, especially what we had on Sunday where we didn't even break 70 degrees. Kind of interesting to look at this temperature trend over the last 20 hours yesterday evening, and even for much of the afternoon, temperatures hovered in the mid-50s, even into the lower 60s with those rain showers. Nice cool start to the morning, but now we're up around 80 degrees today, and it's just going to get warmer. Excessive heat watches have been posted for all of eastern Washington and parts of North Idaho, including the Coeur d'Alene area. area. On the west side, it begins on Wednesday. Here in eastern Washington, it'll start on Thursday as we see highs in the upper 90s, and it looks like we're going to have another round of low 100-degree temperatures. That would be round 3 for this summer. Right now, though, not too bad, just sitting under 80 degrees in Spokane. Even in central Washington, warm but not excessively hot. Temperatures in the lower 80s. 86 right now in Lewiston. Of course, we have mostly sunny skies out here. It's just been a very light haze today. Air quality, for the most part, has been in the moderate category today. But as we see those hotter temperatures return, we could see more activity in local wildfires. So we'll be keeping an eye on the air quality. Here's a look at the next 3 days. 88 tomorrow with partly cloudy skies, mostly sunny on Wednesday and Thursday. Highs in the upper 90s.
Michelle, thank you very much. We'll check back in with you later in the broadcast. Well, today marks the reopening of the Canadian border to foreign travelers. This comes after the border had been closed since last March. KREM 2's Inslee was at the border crossing in North Idaho today with what you need to know before you cross the border.
Today is the day Americans can once again go into Canada for non-essential purposes, such as visiting family members. But there are some steps you need to take beforehand to ensure you aren't turned away at the border, and most of them have to do with being fully vaccinated. It's been 16 months in the making.
Great. My mom lives up here, so it's been a long time since we've had a chance to see her, and so it'll be nice to spend some time.
The Canadian border is finally reopened to American citizens and permanent residents for non-essential travel. That means that if you qualify, you can now go to Canada to visit family or simply take a vacation.
Well, I came up in November and quarantined for 2 weeks because she just moved from the coast to Cranbrook. But, you know, otherwise it's like my dad lives down on the coast, and it's been a year and a half since we've been able to see him, so we'll see him next month.
But there are some hoops to jump through. The biggest thing, you must be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 to enter Canada. That means it needs to be 2 weeks since your last dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. Luckily, all 3 vaccines approved in the United States are accepted in Canada. Next, you need to have a negative COVID-19 test from the 72 hours before your arrival, and it can't be an antigen test. Once you pass these steps, you need to show proof of vaccination through the ArriveCAN app on your phone or through the ArriveCAN website. You can take a photo of it and upload it through one of those methods, and you should also bring your vaccine card or a photo of it to the border crossing. You can start uploading this information 72 hours before your arrival. You also need to provide a quarantine plan in case you are exposed or show symptoms while in Canada. However, you won't need to take a test in Canada or quarantine once you arrive, unless you show symptoms or are exposed. When you're ready to return home, you should have no issues crossing back into the United States. One thing to keep in mind is that the border is only reopening on the Canadian side, and that means that non-essential travel for Canadians into the United States still isn't allowed, and that's scheduled to reopen on August 21st, but that could change before then. For more information on crossing the border into Canada, go to our website at krem.com. Reporting from the United States-Canada border, Ian Smay, KREM 2 News.
Ian, thank you very much. The U.S.-Canadian border is the longest border in the world at 5,500 miles. Chris Daniels from our Seattle sister station made the trip north today and has more from Vancouver, British Columbia tonight.
There is a certain belief among those we talk with that there would not be a huge influx of Americans on the first day, but families are likely to reunite or check on property here above the 49th parallel. We met several families from outside British Columbia that decided to travel domestically within Canada and felt comfortable doing that. Vaccination rates here in BC are at 82%. Yet leaders on both sides of the border acknowledge it could be a while before things are back to normal. I recently sat down with Biden cabinet member and U.S. Trade Ambassador Catherine Tai, who mentioned that the pandemic has impacted supply chains between Canada and the U.S. before the change at the border today.
Vaccination rates, as they are increasing here at home in the U.S., as they are increasing in Canada, they're opening up lines of communication, of movement, and they're bringing hope back and the ability to plan back to people's lives, to our workers, and to our businesses.
There are ongoing issues with dairy, for example, in Canada, and making sure that we continue moving forward with with USMCA and the implementation of USMCA.
Chris Daniels, KREM 2 News.
Well, our local Tools to Schools campaign is back on. Laura Papetti joining us live now with more. Laura?
All right, Mark. Well, let me tell you this. I know everybody's still knee-deep in summer, but we're under a month away from the first day of school, and we want to make it the best first day ever. But we've got to get the kids geared up with backpacks and all the supplies. Coming up, we'll let you know how you can get involved in Tools to Schools.
Make the